All right, guys, we are back, as you can tell, in hill country here in Southern Ohio. So it is bonus gun weekend. Jason and I are down here for the afternoon. Gonna go try and pull as many cameras as we can and make our way down in this big ravine here. We got 4 or 5 cameras down in here, and I think 1 or 2 up on the other side of this hill. So we'll see what we got. All right, guys, I think we found the community hub scrape here. This thing is every bit of 4 foot by 6 foot, maybe 8 foot. There's another one over there. Giant tracks in the mud everywhere. Every single branch is ripped off. I'd say that is the hub scrape there. We will have a camera, multiple cameras down in here, and sit once or twice down in here. Just such a pain in the butt to get to. Probably why there's all this sign here, because no one wants to hoof it the whole way back in here. So on to the next couple. All right, we made us camera number 1, which Chase is standing in front of. So this one's been here since July. We're about, I don't know, 100 yards up the hill on this path coming out of bedding, heading towards this big bottom with that scrape we just found. So we'll see what's on it. What do you think?
Big buck somewhere.
Well, 1 for 2. This camera got stolen. Haha to whoever stole it, because this was the one we weren't sure that was actually gonna work or not. It was a refurb, like all of the other cameras that we hang. It made a beeping noise. The LCD screen was screwy, and we're not even sure if it took pictures. So congrats to whoever stole this one, because you got a half-working camera that probably doesn't work anymore. All right, 2 for 3 at least. The camera was hanging up here, but it's on the ground and the string's still up in the tree, so I am not entirely sure what happened. Maybe a bird pecked at it, cut it. Maybe a squirrel chewed through it. Someone cut it. I don't know. This spot here is my personal favorite. We're right smack in the middle of a saddle, softball field sized fallow field, right smack in the middle of this saddle with 5 or 6 different logging roads all connecting here. We'll see if this camera actually captured anything, and I don't know, go from there. If anyone finds this camera and doesn't find Jace or I, he went in that house, and odds are some Blair Witch Trials happened in there. So finally made it to the render that we hung whole way back in July. Looks like a squirrel or something unplugged it from the SP18, because the actual camera itself didn't last all fall. It died, I don't know, around late August, early September. Kind of a low signal area too, so that camera had to work extra hard. Take it down, go put it somewhere more useful, because at this point we're probably 2 miles from the parking lot here. So it's the first time we've been here since mid-July. So 6 months later, everything looks a little bit different. So you're gonna yank this, get back to the car, and then, I don't know, see how many others we can squeeze in tonight. Alrighty, so we're back in the studio here. So we're gonna buzz through these real quick. We only got 4 today. Somebody stole the SD card out of the Beanfield camera. Whoever put the SD card in backwards in the Beaver Pond corridor messed up the camera, and it didn't read the SD card right at all after that, so it didn't take any pictures. And we only have half of the saddle scrape. So Jace pulled the card after he shot his buck, swapped it out. There's still a card in it, it's still running, but when we were down there pulling cards, there was a car parked there hunting that spot, so we didn't want to ruin his hunt. Let's get right into it here. So we're gonna start first. We have this camera that I call the Bear Cam, and the reason why, you're gonna find out why I call it the Bear Cam. So we put it out July 9th, and then first thing we got on it is July 10th. You can actually hear the bear's teeth crunching down on the camera. When we first walked up to it, Jace looked at me and said, "Hey, was that hole in the screen there before?" And when we pulled the card, yeah, it was not there before. That was from the bear trying to eat the actual camera. Here he is ducking back down the hill. So he tried for about 5 minutes to rip it off the tree. We had it tied with paracord and tied up pretty good, so luckily it didn't come loose, or else we definitely wouldn't have found that camera. And there he goes. So bears in southeast Ohio are becoming more and more prevalent. Starting to see more and more black bears down around some of the state forests and the national forest. I think it's only a matter of time before they start putting in a season, because there's quickly becoming a sustainable population that's moving in from the neighboring, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and taking hold in the hills of Ohio. So literally the day after we put the camera out, and it already got ripped off the tree, got knocked off to the side where we didn't want to point it at, but we still managed to capture some stuff. So we got a squirrel or something there. Chipmunk. There's a little fawn coming by. Another squirrel. Another fawn. Another doe coming down over. There's a doe coming up covered in flies. And we actually managed to get a couple bucks on camera. So here's the first 8-point that comes up in. What's cool about this guy is he's got a split ear. So it'll be really easy to keep track of him for next year and down the road if he made it through this year. And this is already, it's August 2nd. It's a decent rack on him. Here comes his buddy behind him. So he's mainframe 8, and he has a little kicker coming off his right main beam there. He says, hold on. Comes up, sniffs the camera. Nope, he's out of there. Squirrel, raccoon, and then I don't know if the bear came back or what happened to it. Maybe it just finally malfunctioned from being chewed on. We have a picture here from August 9th, and then our next picture isn't until November 9th, so 2 months later. Got a coyote coming down through here. Got a doe coming down through on November 10th, and following right behind her is a buck. Moving at a pretty good pace there. Yeah, we didn't even get him on the video. And here he comes back up. A little 9-point or an 8-point. And then somehow, I don't know how this happened, but November 10th, so you can see the camera's pointed, kind of at an angle facing down in the valley. And then here, November 28th, it got turned, it settled. I don't know if the bear came back or what, but ended up working out. So we got a little spike coming down through here. And then nothing until December 4th. Here's a gun hunter coming down through, which props to him for coming down over that hill. That thing is thick, gnarly, nasty. Very next evening, another doe running down through. Some more does coming down. You can see them running down in the bottom corner of the screen here. Oh, there came one hauling. That's right in the heart of gun season, so there must have been guys up top there. Another doe, a couple does actually, and that's it. So obviously a little disappointed in that one, kind of sucks when you put a camera out in July with intentions of leaving it soak the entire season and a bear tries to rip it off the tree the very next day. But what are you gonna do? All right, the next one here. So we're gonna go to the logging road scrapes. I found this actually coming back from filming the Ohio Whitetail Hall of Fame. Decided to make a little detour and walk some more of the state forest, national forest land, and I ended up finding down over the hill from a road, this logging road that's halfway up the hill. Super overlooked spot. The road is the boundary between public and private. It's like almost drops straight down, but halfway down there's a logging road, and once you know it, there's a pretty nice scrape right in the middle of it. So I didn't have any cameras that day. I came back, hunted it Halloween, put the camera up before I went to go help Jace with his deer, and it sat there for almost a month and a half. So very next day after I hung it, we got this little forky coming by. Just comes and checks everything out. He can smell that I've been in there. He just can't tell what smell. So another little buck coming through. That might be the same little 4 or 5 point there. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Here we go, our first decent buck. He's super wide, not very tall. Kind of looks like he's missing some points off his right side, though. Here comes a doe. And here he comes right behind her. Yep, he's missing his G3 on his right side, so he's only a 7 point. November 6th at night, so it was super warm first part of November. A lot of the activity was at night, unfortunately. Looks like a smaller buck that was following behind him. Yep, another spike there. Then here we go, later that morning. Here he comes by in the daylight, looking for her again. And here he comes sprinting back again. And then nothing until November 9th. Got a doe coming through. Then nothing until the 14th. Comes a little spike down over the hill. No, he's a 3 point. He's got a little brow tine. Yeah, a little brow tine there. There he takes off. Nope. He must be satelliting or something. Yep, just following a doe. There he is again. Here he is again on the 16th. Actually, that's a different spike. Here we are later in the day on the 16th. Front starts to move in. Comes a doe off of the private down across the road, down over the hill into the public. Later on that evening, it's some type of buck cruising down the hill. Another doe, same day, another doe. Here we are 2 days later, there's that spike again. And the very next day, I think this is youth gun season. And Dad and his daughter going out. It's the 20th, here comes something from the private again down over the hill. Little yearling there. Oh man, if only they would have came a day later. Here comes the big boy cruising by. Oh, that stinks. 8:22 in the morning, 11:20, here comes the big boy cruising by. I don't know if he got bumped or was chasing. Almost an hour later, here they come back again. Ugh. Should have been a little quicker. And then after they walk by, here comes a doe or a button buck down off the private. Later on the evening, here's another doe. And here we are 2 days later, here comes a doe running by. Nothing following her yet. Nope. And here we are 3 days later, November 25th. Doe. 2 days later, the 27th, here comes that little 4 or 6 point spike falling behind him. And here we are, opening day of gun season, guy walking through. Very next day, here comes a doe. 30th, here comes that wide buck again. 6:30 in the morning. A couple days later, here comes a spike. And then starts the parade of the coyotes. There's a lot down there. And then later that evening, here comes a red fox cruising by. Another doe, 2 does. 3 does. There's that red fox again. Here we are December 10th now. Just a freaking parade of does through there. All the same evening. Very next evening. Boom. There we go. That's what we're talking about there. That's a pretty solid 8 point. So December 11th, 9:12 in the evening. Here he comes by and looks like he survived a run-in with either a car or a hunter before. Got a pretty big abscess hanging from his belly there. Don't know what's going on there. Hopefully he makes it. That's a pretty solid deer there. It's the only picture or video we got of that buck. Another doe. There's a bobcat. There's a bunch of them down there too. We get pictures of them all the time. Another coyote. Another spike. December 17th. I think that's that wide buck. Yep. There he goes back up the hill. And that's it. So what makes that spot good is it doesn't really get too much pressure. I mean, obviously there was a father and his daughter that came by in youth season. There was that guy opening day gun season, but other than that, gets overlooked. Other side of the road, up on top of the hill, is a old, probably 3 or 4 year old clear cut. So it is just 10-foot tall multiflora rows, some grapevines mixed in there, just real thick, nasty stuff. So they can run right up there, bed there, watch everyone just drive on by, walk down the road, and get up and move when they feel comfortable. All right, this next one here. So this was another one that we put out in the summer. We put this out same day that we put out the bear cam. This is probably about 2 miles down the road, I want to say. We found this was when I was e-scouting this chunk, I found this saddle kind of tucked way back in. There wasn't really any access points close to it. So we hoofed it the whole way back in there, and it turns out there's probably like a football field size fallow field right on the saddle with 3 or 4 different logging roads coming in there. So overall, you know, pretty solid spot there. I mean, as you'll see, it's kind of hard to cover that whole area with one camera though. We had it actually in the fallow field on, I don't know, like a 2 or 3 inch tree. See, all the bigger the trees were in the actual fallow field. So we tried to, you know, cover 1 or 2 of the trails coming across the logging roads. I'm sure we'll scatter more cameras there next year, but let's dive right into it here. So we put it up July 9th. We found a bunch of beds back, like the top right of the screen there amongst those taller trees. There's a boatload of beds in the grass there. So we expected some deer using this in the summer. First thing here we got, you know, probably, I don't know, a week and a half after we hung the camera, there's a little 8-point running by. Same day, here comes a doe. Doe, fawn, doe. There's that little 8-point again. No, he's not little. He's decent. Looks like he's going to be high and tight. There's that high and tight one there. This one's pretty nice. So I think we get this guy later on in the year on camera too. Real nice wide buck. I think he's an 8 or 10. No, he's an 8-point as of July 25th. Now here we go, another buck, July 27th, cruising down through. I went through and thinned out a lot of these because there was a lot of videos on this. You know, being on an open field like this, especially with trees with leaves right in front of it, anytime that wind blows, it's going to set off the camera. Spike running by. And then this one here, this is a pretty nice buck coming down through here. Pause it back here. That's a pretty solid rack. Pretty solid set of headgear on him. There's something. Looks like a buck there. Oh, okay, I remember this one now. I take it someone got a little too close to Mama's fawn. She decided she had enough of that. A little spike down there in the bottom corner. There he is again. Doe coming out. Doe. That's the other thing with putting it on an open fallow field like this. Anytime there's mist or fog in the morning, it's going to fog up the outside of that lens. Nothing we can really do about that. That's just nature there. Another little doe working off to the right there. Doe cruising through. Spike. There he wanders off. Another doe. This one's pretty cool. So you want to know how quick our cameras are at taking pictures? That's a hummingbird mid-flight. Another doe. That's that same group, the 2 does and a fawn. The wind was blowing, you can tell because of how small of a tree we're on. It's kind of waving back and forth, but here's that high and tight 8-point coming by. Another doe, 2 does. There's that high and tight 8-point again. Couple does here. So this one I think is that nicer buck that we saw earlier. You can see he's got a pretty big frame there. That's August 31st. There he is running off. You can see the big frame as he's running. Runs right into the brush. Big group of does. Actually, that's a little spike right there. Still following his mom around. There they are again. There's that high and tight 8-point. Little fawn. Doe. Doe. And there he is, the mystery buck. He's always out of range, it seems like. It's a pretty solid deer there. Just freshly shed. Cruising in the daylight. Looks like he's got at least 4 with maybe a brow tine on one side. Right in the morning, so the outside of the camera lens is a little foggy with the morning dew. 2 weeks before season opener. There's the high and tight 8-point. Something hauling through there. There's the big group of does again. And again. And again. And there's another 8-point. That's a little different than the high and tight 8-point. He's a lot taller than that other one that we had through the summer on this camera. Pretty solid deer. Got a reindeer. Little 8-point here. So he came through, that 8-point came through 2 days before season opener. Then we had nothing until the 30th on this camera. There's that doe, and that 8-point's just kind of hanging around. And here we are a couple days later, October 2nd. Big group of does there. Now everything's going nocturnal. So October 4th. There's that 8-point that shifted into the area. October 14th, got some guys scouting here. That's the only pictures of people we got on this camera. And then nothing for another 4 days. Here comes some does. Now we're getting closer to scrape week here. Here's October 20th, couple does coming down through. The next morning, there's a buck. Can't tell what he is. I think it's one of the 8-points. Yeah, it kind of looks like it. So that's October 25th at midnight. October 26th at 11 p.m. There he is again. October 27th, there's a kind of a funky looking 8-point there. And then we had nothing until November 4th. There was a butt that went cruising by, which belongs to this ET looking guy. 4 days later, November 8th, a couple does just kind of hanging out. Here we are, November 13th. So, temp finally dropped, November 13th, 22 degrees in the morning. Got some deer on their feet here. A lot of deer on their feet, actually. Buck harassing a doe there. 4:17 in the afternoon, it's still only 27 degrees. Here we are, the 14th. Couple does there. And 16th at 6 in the morning. Nice solid 8-point there. I think that might have been that one we had in velvet. Same day, November 17th, there's that kind of funky looking one. Another doe. 18th. Here it gets really cold, getting into the teens now, some snow on the ground. November 19th. There's a 4-point. Here we go. So November 21st. Got a buck tending a doe there. There's a little satellite buck coming in to check out what's going on. Here comes another buck. Big boy must have been there guarding a doe. He didn't want his butt whooped. And here we go in the morning. So we got buck number 1 down at the bottom, buck number 2 in the middle here behind these trees. And if you watch, you'll see buck number 3 way up here. Here comes buck number 3 down to get rid of those pesky little guys. He must have a doe bedded up down there. Bedded up. He must have a doe bedded up there. Yep, you can see him right here. His tail flickering. There's that high and tight 8-point coming back in to try. Here comes the big dude down off the hill. Here we go. Here she comes. And here he comes. And he is that's a toad there. Nice, thick, heavy. Got a kicker coming off his right G2. Looks like he's got inside bladed beams. Just a solid public land deer there. Here he comes again. Saying, get away from my doe. These little guys never learn. Here he comes. Here comes another little guy trying to swoop in. And then after that, I don't know what happened. So here's the camera falling to the ground. Here's it laying on the ground, face down. I couldn't get up in the tree to get the string. It was laying on the ground face down for a whole month and a half almost. So we missed the latter part of November and then missed gun season. So overall, pretty solid. Kind of expected a little more action from that spot, but I'm not complaining. Got to see some pretty cool stuff from that spot, especially that last sequence with that, especially that last sequence with that buck chasing off all the satellite bucks. That was pretty cool to see. Now we're going to pass it over to Jace. Jace is going to do the card pull from the saddle scrape and break down his hunt when he shot his buck on Halloween.
All right. Here's Lucas and I when the second to last time we checked the saddle scrape camera. This was a couple days before season started, 9/21, September 23rd, first deer we had on camera. Just a doe strolling through there, fawn, coyote. Seems to be a lot of coyotes at this specific piece. Good terrain, good habitat there, so they definitely like the area. Squirrel hunter. He's our camera, nice enough to not mess with it. Thank you. As we've had problems with people, as I'm sure Lucas mentioned, we had one camera stolen, had people steal SD cards, things like that. Nice long beard. All right, here's the first buck from this card pull. 10:14, 6:25 a.m. working the scrape. Nice young deer. Couple videos, pictures of him. There's a nice 11 point, and 10:19 is the first picture and video we actually got of the buck I ended up shooting on Halloween. So didn't know he was there. Obviously this isn't a cell camera, there's no cell service in the area. Didn't pull the card till after I hunted there and after I shot the buck, so didn't even know he was in the area. You see daylight, 5:50 p.m. Still plenty of legal shooting time. Another picture, another cool video of him working the scrape. Well, walking away from the scrape. There's that young 8-point. Again, Yodi working the scrape. He actually does pee in it. It's weird. I didn't even notice that. I think I just scrolled through the first time I went through and actually checked all these videos. I didn't even realize he actually did that. All right, and this is actually one of the other shooters that was daylighting. That's last week of October. Really good deer. I would have shot either one of them, one I killed or this one, obviously. He's got a split G2, just a really nice deer. Short brows, but just a stud. There's another scrape right there. There's probably 3 or 4 scrapes right there in a line within probably 50 yards. Shout out to Johnny Stewart. As you can see, he's pooping in that scrape, and as he said, you know, if they shit in the scrape, you know, it's got to mean something. So he definitely liked being there. He was coming through at 6:30. There's that small 8-pointer again. There's that split G2 buck, came back following day, about the same time actually, or I don't know, it's the next day. 3 days later actually. 3 days later, about the same exact time. And then 10:27 at 9:36, there's the buck I ended up shooting, coming in to work the scrape. There's him leaving, and I believe that's actually the last video we got of him hitting the scrape before I ended up shooting him. There's another guy, walks in front of our camera a bunch of times, and which I don't care, it's public land, do whatever you want. I'm just glad he didn't mess with it, but pretty funny, he did hang his camera on the exact same scrape, probably about 3 feet away from our tree. But hey, that's public land. I don't care at all. He could have checked our camera, I wouldn't have cared, but I just thought it was funny he put it on the same one. That being said, that's 4 days before I went in there and hunted it. Obviously he was walking around a lot, I don't know what kind of pressure. It had been like that week or the prior weeks. I hadn't been down there at all since the end of September before season even started. There's another coyote. He's in the scrape. Young buck. Kind of forgot about this deer that showed up. This was the day before I was in there to hunt, actually. So 10:30 at 9:35 a.m. It was a nice deer for sure. Nice younger deer. Going back to where I was talking about the guy putting his camera on that tree. You can see that deer just spooked, blue right there. He just dead stops right there as he's coming in to work the scrape. That guy put his camera right there on the tree next to us. Didn't do a pretty good job of hiding it, which whatever. I always, I like to put mine high up in the air. One, get out of sight of people and deer. That deer picked that camera off really easily and actually basically spooked the deer. He doesn't, he ends up leaving, doesn't even work the scrape. So it's one thing to keep in mind, to make sure you not only hide your cameras from people, but deer as well. Another young deer, spike. And then 10:31, there's me coming in to hunt, actually. And as you can see, it's almost 8:30 in the morning. So I got a pretty late start, kind of late start in the morning. It was predicted to rain pretty hard right at first light and everything. So I got to the parking spot and a little bit before daybreak, our legal shooting light, and it wasn't raining as hard as it's supposed to. And as it was breaking light, it was just kind of sprinkling. So I was like, well, I guess it's not going to rain that hard, so I'm just going to go ahead and get my stuff together and just kind of slowly work my way in. I had probably about a little over a half a mile walk in, got my stuff packed up, started walking in as it was breaking daylight. Of course, I overdressed. Walking in, had to stop like 2 different times, shed layers. I'm all mad, heated, hot, sweaty. Ended up actually walking in different way than I wanted to. I thought I was going the right way, and was supposed to cut down this ridge and go down the bottom and up sooner than I did. So I kind of went farther on this ridge, had to backtrack. So at the time I was all mad, and that's why I was like, man, this is stupid. I'm not gonna see any deer, scaring everything away. But I think this actually did help the way I walked in from the way I originally wanted to walk in, from bumping, or where I think the buck I ended up killing was bedded. So little I know is actually helping me out, even though at the time I was mad. So anyways, as you can see here in this picture, I came in from in front of the camera, was wanting to come in from the right side. Didn't work out like that, but kind of helped me in the end. So get set up a little bit after 8:30. And as you can see, this camera right here is right up on the scrape, 5 yards off the scrape maybe. And I could have set up right there instead of me setting up right up on the scrape, like 10, 15 yards off of it. I decided to sit back like 25, 30 yards off of it because the scrape's on a saddle on this ridge top. So all on the edges, it kind of slowly, gradually declines, and then it drops off on each side to these real steep ridges. There's pretty rough terrain in this area, pretty hilly. So, but anyways, so I sat back 25, 30 yards off of the scrape with the intentions of if a buck came in, instead of wanting to work the scrape, was wanting to walk downwind of that scrape, I would catch him working the downwind side of the backside of that ridge top. And that's basically what ended up happening, and how I ended up killing my deer. So set up a little after 8:30, did a couple of grunt sequences. Think I rattled, did like 1 rattling sequence, didn't see much. There's no service here in this area, so it's kind of a downfall. Trying to get a hold of people if you need to. Lucas and I had a plan like 10:30, 11, get down, regroup to where we were camping at. It was about 10:30, hadn't seen anything yet, still light rain on and off. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just get down, work my way out slowly. I had like a little over a half a mile walk, nothing too far, but gonna take me a little bit to pack up my stuff, get out. And I was like, no, I'll sit a little bit. I just had a feeling, I feel like right as I'm about to get down, a deer's gonna come in, because it kind of was finally starting to lighten up, rain, and the sun was starting to come out. So I was like, well, I'll just wait a little bit longer, 10 more minutes. It's about 10:50, 10:55, and I'm like, all right, I haven't seen anything. I'm getting down. Did one last look around, didn't see anything moving, no movement. Unnock my arrow, pull up my bow rope, start tying it around my bow. Did one last look over my shoulder, and what do I see is a buck working that downwind side of the scrape on the back edge of the ridgetop, and gonna come behind me at probably like 15 yards, maybe, like directly behind me. So I slowly stand up, and he gets directly behind my tree, behind me. And at that point, I mean, he's right downwind of me at that point. And I don't know if he started smelling me, if he saw me moving a little bit or what, but he kind of started looking up, smelling a little bit, and he turned, started walking away. And at that point, I already had re-knocked an arrow, drew back, stopped him, shot, heard a loud punch. And so I was like, oh, I smoked him, saw him take off running. Like I said, it gradually drops down and it drops off real steep. So once he got down over there, I lost him. He dropped down over and disappeared. So I was all excited, hooping and hollering. Probably should have been quiet, listened to see if I could hear him crash, because I'm pretty sure he crashed pretty quickly because he ended up not going that far. But at the time, I was just all excited. Got down, couldn't find my arrow, found some blood, good blood at impact, some blood splattered on a tree. Followed the blood to where it dropped down on that hill, and it was pretty thick on that hill, and it was steep. I mean, it dropped down 200 feet probably. So I backed out, went back to camp. Like I said, no service, so I'm kind of just sitting at camp waiting for everyone else to show back up, just twiddling my thumbs. And then at that point, you know, I'm getting in my head, second guessing my shot, because I'm like, I remember hearing a loud punch. So then I was like, maybe I hit too far forward with them quartering away. Maybe I hit the shoulder, didn't get much penetration, I don't know. Waited 3 hours, finally met up with everyone, went back in. Lucas and his buddy got back on the blood trail, still couldn't find my arrow. Walked down over the hill, and the blood picked up pretty good, and I got ahead of everyone. I was real excited, and I just kept following it. He probably went 3/4 of the way down that hill, and he was piled up on the hill. So I was able to see him from, you know, a little bit away. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty exciting to be able to harvest a deer from basically scouting and finding an area back in turkey season, when Lucas and I found that spot when we went there in turkey hunting in the spring, found that scrape on that saddle, marked it, hung a camera there, had a camera there all spring, summer, fall, and just cool to see when all the deer that came through there, and then when it kind of, that switch flipped and bucks started coming through there, and just that last week or so of October, where all those bucks started daylighting, working that scrape. And we just happened to time it perfect and go down there and at the right time, basically. And I was able to catch him, I'm guessing, getting up out of his bed late morning after that rain, and just walking the downwind edge of that scrape, and I was able to get a shot at him. So pretty sweet. It's been almost 2 months now since I harvested him. So still got a doe tag in Ohio. Still a little over a month of season left. So hopefully Lucas can get out and kill one and get another story for you guys.